Hello. In this video, we want to look at an application. In the late 50s, the Soviets labored to develop a missile that could stop the U-2 spy plane. On May 1st, 1960, Nikita Khrushchev announced to the world that the Soviets had shot down Francis Gary Powers while Powers was photographing the Soviet Union from a U-2 at an altitude of 14 miles. How wide a path on the surface of the Earth could Powers see from that altitude? Use 3,950 miles as the radius of the Earth. Okay. First of all, there we go. Awesome. Now, here's the thing. We know that he was 14 miles in the air. And we want to know how wide a path on the surface of the Earth could he see from that altitude. We really need to figure out the total angle that he could see here, which would look like this in this figure. And we want to know this arc length, which means we need to know that angle, which means we need to know alpha. Now we know the length here is 350, and he was in the air at 14 miles. Now notice that because this is the radius of the Earth, that this is also 3,950 miles. So this actually allows us to draw this figure. Okay, so what I just drew is this right here. Now, this is the hypotenuse, if this is the right angle. If that's the hypotenuse, that's 3,950 plus 14, which would give us 3,964 miles. And this side right here would be 3,950. And what we want to figure out is, what is this angle alpha? And if this is the right angle, notice that in terms of alpha, this side is the adjacent and this side is hypotenuse. Adjacent, hypotenuse, so-called TOA. That would be cosine. So I can use cosine of the angle alpha is equal to the adjacent 3950 divided by the hypotenuse 3964. Now alpha would simply be the inverse cosine of this value. Good. Now, I want to know what was this, and I'm going to call this beta. Notice that beta equals 2 alpha. Now, as a result, that means that beta would be 2 times the inverse cosine of 3950 over 3964. Good. And if I want to know this arc length, we have to use the arc length formula. S equals alpha r. But this alpha isn't really alpha. This alpha that we're looking at will actually be beta, as long as beta's in terms of radians. So when you type this into the calculator, make sure that you're in radians. R is just the radius of the Earth, so S will just be beta, which is 2 times the inverse cosine of 3950 over 3964, and then times the radius of the Earth, which is 3950. So there you go, just type that in. 2, and then inverse cosine, 3950 over 3964, close your parentheses, and then times 3950. Before you click enter, make sure you're in radians, not degrees, and then just click enter. And that tells you that S would be 664, 0.1515438, but just 664 is probably the best. And the units here are miles. And that's for almost, not really a diameter, but kind of a diameter. So that's going that way, and pretty much any direction you look, he can see forward and backward 664 miles. Now, forward would be 332 miles, and then backward 332 miles. Alrighty. Well, I believe that's it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and I will see you in the next one. Have fun.